Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Speakers for Schools broadcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us. Today's session will last for roughly round about 45 minutes and will include an interview with our speaker before we later move on to a student Q&A. Questions for our speaker can be submitted via the Q&A function, which you'll find just underneath the stream on your screens, and depending what device you're using, you might have to scroll down just a little bit to be able to see this. It's open now and it will remain open through the rest of the session, so we encourage you to submit as many questions as you like in response to anything that's said today, as we do love to hear from you during our student Q&A, and it's a great chance for you to get those questions answered. Now, if you find yourself to experience any sort of issue or anything like that, do also let us know via that Q&A box, and one of our moderators will be on hand to help where we can. Or you can email us directly at broadcasts@speakersforschools.org. It's also in the email that sent you the link to join today's session. Do keep a lookout towards the end of the session, around about 22, as a feedback poll will go live around that time, and that's a chance for you to let us know how you found today's session. All right, now our housekeeping is sorted. I'm really excited to welcome today's speaker. Of course, we are talking about Pride today, which is just so important and such a great topic, and the perfect time of year to be talking about it. Of course, if you are going through anything, if you're struggling, if you're worried about your own mental health, please put yourself first and think about you and what your needs are. You can always return to this talk later if needed. All right, please welcome Richard Duncalf OBE, who is an entrepreneur, an investor. He's done loads of campaigning around the LGBTQ+, and he's a former Liberal Democrat advisor and party treasurer. He's got loads of experience and a really interesting career and a real big passion for equality and advocacy. So everybody, please welcome Richard. Hello.
Hi, Charlie. Hi, everybody. Hope you're all trying to keep as cool.
Yeah, certainly is hot. It can't be fun in schools today, but they're watching, they're here with us. So for our first question then, just so we can get to know who you are a little bit better, could you tell us about your career journey and what it is you do now?
Thanks, Charlie. Well, I'm retired at the moment, but I was an entrepreneur, certainly in the retail sphere. I was lucky enough to meet my partner about 36 years ago, and probably around 30 years ago, we started a business together, which basically partnered with quite well-known fashion designers. One of our fashion designers was Vivienne Westwood, and we were her business partner for 16 years. We've also worked with Adidas on setting stores up, and I sold that business in 2022 and am now retired. But you never are retired, because I'm probably busier now than I was when I was obviously working. So as you've intimated, I'm very much campaigning for LGBTQ rights. I'm a trustee of the first national LGBTQ museum, which is based in London's King Cross. I also invest in LGBTQ companies, and also via our foundation with my partner Oscar, we support students at the University of the Arts with bursaries through their course, and that's predominantly creative degrees. I'm also a presiding magistrate. You'd be surprised to know that ordinary people that have no legal training whatsoever, they do get some training, but can become voluntary judges. And I'm a senior presiding magistrate in London, and I do that 2 or 3 days in a month. And we support a lot of charities in the arts, animal welfare, and also mental health charities. So I'm very busy, but my career has really been as an entrepreneur, and also being involved in politics, because I'm very keen that you can't complain about anything unless you try and do it yourself. And so clearly, that in a nutshell is probably what I've done, and have been moderately successful at it.
Yeah, I really love that sort of idea of, you got to make change, right? If you have issues, do something about it. Don't just let it sit you by. There's too much inaction, I think, nowadays when we have issues, just to moan about it and then not do anything else after.
Yeah, I mean, the world is a very crazy place at the moment, and I don't really want to get too much into obviously politics, but there's a lot of bad things going on, and what I term the good people need to stand up and say, we need to change this. And I'm very much of the opinion that you need to take action within the law and within your democracy, and we live in a democracy, that we do things in a right way, and we make sure our voice is obviously heard. Through a democracy, you do that via your MPs and obviously Parliament. But I know there's a lot of despondency in the world. Hopefully, after the 45 minutes of my talk, there'll be a little bit more optimism, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. So, as we're talking about Pride and it being Pride Month in all different places across the world, June, July, everyone's celebrating Pride currently. What does Pride mean to you?
Oh, well, I mean, the very first time that I marched in London Pride, the thousands of strong members of our community, and the love that was given to us. And I felt so proud that I was there with my partner, bearing in mind that if I look back 35 years ago when I started my career, when I wasn't out, there wasn't the support that is available now in businesses and in the outside world. We were very much on our own, and I was very much in the closet. Well, now I'm not in the closet, because certainly in terms of my business life, which predominantly has been with my partner, when they talk about me, they talk about Oscar as well. So I'm very proud of Pride. There have been some setbacks over the last 18 months, but I think there's still a huge optimism. And I think it was one of the reasons I got involved with Queer Britain, which, as I said, was the National Museum for LGBTQ people. The safe place that is for a lot of people. And we have a wall where people can put a little sticker in terms of what it's meant to them to come to this museum. And it's the most beautiful experience reading what people have said about coming to the museum. So we do need safe places like that, and we do need all the prides. And it's not just London Pride. Around the country, there are other prides that are obviously held. And whether you are LGBTQ or whether you're an ally of the community, please do support those prides.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great sort of atmosphere, isn't it? All our prides. I've never been to a pride that hasn't had a great atmosphere for all those involved. It's just full of wonderful, welcoming people that, love everyone. So yeah, great places. Thinking around Pride then, and it's great that we celebrate it in June and July, but sometimes people can celebrate it and then sort of move on and not think about it. So, what are some practical ways that young people, students, can keep thinking about the LGBTQ plus inclusion and that sort of the sort of pride mentality? How do we keep that going and keep it visible throughout the rest of the year?
Well, certainly over the last 10 to 15 years, a lot of other organizations, other than Pride, there's a great charity that I'm very proud to support called Just Like Us. And you can become an ambassador for Just Like Us. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about the people I'm talking to now. You can become ambassadors for the community with the support of Just Like Us, going into schools, talking about the issues that we're going to talk about over the next 30 minutes. So there are organizations like Just Like Us where you can support and you can get involved as students, talking to your peer groups and talking to other schools. And I really would urge, if you're interested in that, to get involved, because 30, 40 years ago, that wasn't the obviously case.
That is great and a really good recommendation. I've noted down the name, Just Like Us, and I will be sure to share that as well in our feedback email, just so in case anyone wants to look into them afterwards, they can do so and they have that there. So thank you for mentioning that. We love recommendations and things. Everyone likes to have something to go look for, so that's really great. Our next question is around positive changes. Obviously, you let us know in your first question that it was very different when you started your career over 30 years ago. So, what are some of the positive changes that you have seen in LGBTQ plus representation during your career?
Well, I wasn't out when I first started my corporate career, and I did start off with a bigger company. There wasn't such a corporate grouping of like-minded individuals coming together to represent our community. So there have been changes, but certainly there's still a lot more to do. And in fact, I was talking to a colleague of mine who is involved with an organization called the Outsider's Perspective. And that is because I've been involved in the fashion industry. And if you look at the fashion industry, the amount of employees that are LGBT, who represent themselves as LGBTQ, is very large. But they're not running the businesses. So I think to a certain extent it is, we need to get people coming through. For some reason, maybe they decide not to do it. We need to get people coming through running businesses who are represented by our community. So there's still a lot to be done. Businesses are far more inclined to treat diversity and inclusion as one of the top priorities for their business. Don't want to go into politics again, but we talk about the world in relation to people who don't consider this to be a priority. Well, it is a priority, because you've obviously got to mentor all the talents. And I think a lot of people who represent themselves as LGBTQ feel that they're not listened to. So clearly, a lot to be done, but a lot better than it was when I started my career.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to look back and reflect and go, oh, it's better, but that never means you should stop. You know, you can always improve no matter what it is. There's always
I'm very
something.
sad that sort of certain companies feel that they should cut back on supporting diversity and inclusion. And, well, we cut back and we go back. You know, we should be doing more of this, because a lot of people, I mean, I failed my A levels. So you could say in some respect, I haven't succeeded academically, but I've used that in a way to push myself forward, because I've been knocked down. I pushed myself forward and got up. And that's the thing that I really do say in about life, that life is an exam, but the syllabus is unknown and the question papers are not set. We set our own question papers. We set our own syllabus in terms of how we want to live our lives. And you're going to be knocked back. And everybody on this call now that's listening to me now, you are not all going to have success, you know, 24/7. You're going to be knocked back, and you've got to have the strength to get up and to learn from that. And that's what I've always done. And if anything, it makes me stronger. When I'm not back, it makes me stronger. It doesn't make you weaker, it makes you stronger.
Yeah, again, you can't learn, right, if you don't go through that sort of stuff. If everything's easy, I guess there's a limited growth there. So, yeah. All right, our next question is around motivation, which is so difficult, and we all have such short attention spans nowadays. So, what motivates you to keep going and keep pushing for change? And, you know, because you've been doing it for so many years, how do you stay motivated and keep wanting to make those changes?
Well, it's a very simple thing, really. I have a real passion and interest for life that hasn't ever left me. And there have been times when mentally I haven't been as strong, but that interest and passion for life has always been there, and that really does sustain you. Never give up on anything at all. There is always a way of achieving. It may not be the most straightforward way. It may not be the quickest way. You talk about short attention spans, but that's what we've got now. You know, I'm of a generation where I put the news on ITV or BBC. Well, people don't anymore. They get it via YouTube. They get it through podcasts. They get it through TikTok. You know, things are changing. We understand, obviously, that. But a passion for knowledge, a passion to learn, that must never, never, never leave you, because the day it leaves you, and I'm closer to that than most people on this obviously call, is the day that, you know, you're not around. So never let it leave you at all. And also the other thing is, you know, that passion is sustained by networking. Be involved with organizations, be involved with other people, talk to other people. That can be online as well. It doesn't have to be face to face. But, you know, keep that passion for knowledge and learning always. Don't think, oh, well, I've gone to school till 16, I've gone to school till I'm 18, I'm going to university or obviously college, and then it stops. It never, never stops. I've been in so many situations where I'm still learning now. I'm going to a dinner this evening where I'm hosting one of the political leaders, and I'm sure I'll be sitting next to somebody that I'm going to learn on something. I'm going to learn from the dinner that I'm obviously hosting, and I'll take that in my mind, and it's a joyous thing, and that's what I really want to infuse, today. It isn't something that should be a chore, that's something that you shouldn't enjoy. I agree. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it. The day that you stop enjoying it is the day that you stop doing whatever you're doing. So there has to be some enjoyment there as well.
Yeah, we spend most of our life in work, don't we? Really, 37.5 hours on average a week. It's a lot of time to be given to something that you don't enjoy, and or it doesn't bring you joy, I should say. So yeah, I love that, and the level of passion you have for this subject, and the fact that it's expanded decades is just so cool. With the amount of things that you have done, we have around about 3 more questions left before we move on to our student questions. So do keep those student questions coming in. Anything that comes to mind, we'll be answering those shortly. So our next question is, why is diversity inclusion, and we're hearing that phrase a lot recently, or diversity, equality, and inclusion, why is it more important now than ever?
Well, I've touched on it before, haven't I? And I get a little emotional because it's who I am, it's what I do. That if I get pushed back, I'm going to push back twice as hard, because this is important. It's important in terms of giving everybody their best chance in life. And we fought for this in terms of business. We fought for this in terms of community. We fought for this in terms of politics. This is human rights. I've not touched on trans rights, but to me, this is human rights. People should be allowed to live their life within the law as they wish to. So we still are fighting. It's still important. We still haven't got to where we want to be, and we probably never will. But what we will do, at least we'll have done our best to make the world and the journey for people coming behind us. I mean, I'm 65, obviously, this year, so I've lived life a lot longer than most people on this call. But what, really does propel me forward is the fact that I can do some things now which will make life hopefully a little easier for somebody coming behind me.
I like that. I like that idea. The sort of, are you happy with what you've done behind you and what you're leaving for other people, and really thinking about, what comes after and who comes after. Yeah.
Yes, and also, it's what we touched on before, that life is not easy for a lot of people, but what we can do, and what I try and do, at least something, maybe 1 or 2 things during my working day, that I've done something, shown some kindness, or I've done some mentoring, I've given some advice. It's something that everybody like myself who've obviously had the success that I have, that you put something back and support somebody else who's just going on that obviously journey. Because if everybody does that, it becomes quite a big movement. You always think that, well, you don't matter, you don't care, but you do matter. A little small thing, you know, as many people that do it, and that's what we touched upon in relation to Just Like Us and volunteering. I'm a huge supporter of volunteering, and you know, my father was in local government, so he knows very much about sort of public service and obviously volunteering. That you know, more people should do that, and we're able to do it far more because the internet is there. We can find the information anywhere now to do anything that we want to do, and we can do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think you touched on some really good stuff there, especially around volunteering. It's so easy to volunteer nowadays, and everybody needs that. So if you can give your time back, that's a great thing to do. Also looks really good on CVs and things when you're applying for jobs. If all the students watching start thinking about that, because it is there, and it's that, and that's sort of doing something good. Hopefully today, you giving this time up, you know, giving us an hour of your time to talk to us, hopefully that's making you feel good and helping you take that action, and that's something that you're thinking about from today, because it's definitely great. All right, our final two questions then before we move on to our student questions. This was quite a big one, and I think it's quite difficult. How do you deal with self-doubt?
Well, doesn't matter who you are, whether it's the Prime Minister, the King, everybody on this call, me, there will be times during the day, week, month, year, you get self-doubt. I always tend to not want to make a quick decision on something. I'll either sleep on it or I'll take advice. And I think that's the biggest thing, whether it's from, you know, a friend, colleague, family member. Somebody is always going to be able to listen to you. It may be somebody on the end of a call, you know, on the end of online as well. It doesn't have to be somebody, obviously, face to face. But we all do have self-doubt. It's another phrase for it is imposter syndrome. And what imposter syndrome means is, no matter however successful you think you are, you always think that you're not worthy. And somehow you've got there through luck or by other means. Now, the only person that knows what they're going to do in life, and it's ordained for them, is Prince William. Because Prince William is going to be king. That's the only person. You may think you're going to be the most fantastic footballer for Liverpool, Manchester United, Aston Villa, whatever team it is. It's nothing ordained. Nothing is ordained. And what I mean by that, you basically got to work hard, do your research, like me talking to you now. I'm not just, I've done some research and I've got some notes in front of me. You always need to be prepared. You always need to have done your research. And then with that, you try and search for the opportunity. And then you've got more chance of success. So hard work, all that, take advice, sleep on it. And then if it gets a little tough, and we've not really touched very much about mental health, and it's very evident now that mental health is far more, good mental health is far more prevalent. There's a lot of organizations like out there. I mean, I support one called Queerwell, and that is for people in the LGBTQ community that've got mental health issues. I also support an app called Voda, and that's an LGBTQ founder and that's available on your phone as a free advice, as a free resource. So that is all that is out there when self-doubt does become a little bit of a problem. So never feel that you're on your own, because you're not on your own. But the simple answer, doesn't matter who you are, you have self-doubt. And you just put it to the back of my mind. I just put it to the back of my mind and say, look, I can do this. And I go out and do it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad you mentioned mental health within that as well, because there is a point when it can become too much. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And again, I've noted those down, and all of that will be included within the email on afterwards as well. Our final question before we move on to our student Q&A then is, what is the best piece of career advice that you have ever been given?
I think I've touched on it before, and that is never, never, never give up. You'll be knocked down, get up. You'll be knocked down, get up. And you will succeed if you've got determination and opportunity. And you need opportunity, and that's what, in the world, we've got to create more opportunity for obviously people. But basically, it is never easy. And just have this self-determination that you really can do it. I mean, I've been involved with lots of different businesses. I've set businesses up, and I've never really done it for the money. The money has come, but it's because I enjoyed the challenge. And that there will always be some way of doing what you want to do. It may be not the classic route. I want to become a lawyer, I'm going to do this and that. I may need to do this and I may need to do that. So be creative in terms of what you want to do. And it doesn't involve, perhaps going to college, perhaps going to university. There are lots of other opportunities to get into a vocation that doesn't involve further education. I didn't start off. I mean, I worked in a bank. I worked as a trainee chartered surveyor, and then I got involved in politics. And I thought, where can I do politics? And I did politics at university. So that was my route. And then working in the corporate world and then setting up my own businesses. That's not been a classic route by any stretch. So I think, I know money is important because we all survive on having money to live. But do something you want, do something that you enjoy, because so many people don't do things that they enjoy. And I really do think that you deserve to do something that you enjoy and really want to do.
Definitely. I like that. A nice piece of advice and things to sort of think about. We're going to move on to our student Q&A. So some of our student questions that have come in. I'm going to start with this one. I really like it. Someone has asked, what's your favourite career memory?
Career memory? Lots. I think I touched on it that through my partner, we became the business partner for a very special fashion designer who unfortunately died a couple of years ago, called obviously Vivienne Westwood. and some of you will know that name. She was a very outlandish, but very successful, obviously fashion designer, but very much based in London. And we opened stores with Vivienne in Manchester, in Liverpool, Nottingham, Newcastle, and taking Vivienne around the country and seeing, you know, the effect that Vivienne had on, you know, whole cities. You know, they'd never had a designer store like a Vivienne Westwood store. And it created a lot of economic impact. So that's something that I really, and in fact, my partner a couple of years ago got his OBE, because he has an OBE for his services to fashion, and that's predominantly our work with Vivienne and other designers. But there's lots. I mean, I've you know, not so much career, but just opportunities that I've had, just been obviously fantastic. But yes, I could wax lyrically sort of for another 45 minutes, which I'm sure the audience doesn't want me to, about that question.
Great. Our next question then is, at what point did you consider yourself to be an entrepreneur? And I like this one because people throw this around a lot. Be an entrepreneur, you know, be your own boss, blah, 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 blah. We hear the word a lot and it's sort of become like a buzzword, hasn't it? So, yeah.
Well, I think right. Well, that's quite a simple question, because I obviously worked, my initial career once I'd done my business degree was working for two big companies, actually two companies that are not around obviously now. One was called Gallagher, which was a big conglomerate of different companies, and the second one was GUS. So I started off my career in marketing and with special projects with those two companies. They were paying my salary. I was working for them. And then I stopped working for them and I started to work for myself. Nobody was paying my salary. And I was basically having to earn my wage myself. So find an opportunity. In my case, the second corporate company I worked for was a company called Great Universal Stores, and that's before the internet. There was something called catalogs, and your parents or your grandparents would buy stuff out of catalogs. And I worked for them as a brand manager, and then I supplied them with product. So that was my sort of entrepreneurial route, that I saw the opportunity for certain products to supply these companies. And then I was successful with that. And then through my personal partner, he wanted to do things in the fashion sphere. And I said, oh, well, let's work together on that. So research, opportunity, and then you've got to earn your daily wage. And it really does change your perspective. When you're spending your money, it's very personal. And that's why when I'm sort of on charity boards and or non-executives, you know, I can say, look, I've spent my own money. I haven't spent somebody else's money. And when you're working for somebody else, you're spending their money. When you work for yourself, you're spending yours. So really just concentrate your mind. So that's the sort of the way I actually look at it.
Yeah, great. Thank you for answering that one. We have this question here, which is a great one, which is, what do you think is the biggest barrier to changing UK rights for the LGBTQ plus in law? Quite a hefty question.
Look, when we had a lot of us fought for civil partnerships, so same-sex couples, because there are people that were together for couples that were together for 30, 40, 50 years, and one of them died. There was no financial rights at all for the survivor. So we fought for that. We fought for equal marriage. The challenge is always, we live in a democracy. It's up to Parliament to change, obviously, laws. I'm involved with organisations like Stonewall, and the big thing at the moment is obviously trans rights. And it's very much polarised our community, which is a great, obviously, shame. You work within the law. You know, if I don't like the law, I'm going to obviously try and change that through our MPs. So the barriers are that we obviously, as a society, we go backwards, and people think that inclusion isn't important, diversity isn't important. But the vast majority of people still believe that is not the case. So I know people can get turned off by politics. I sometimes can get turned off by politics. But that's the way to change things. You know, whether at a local level or at a national level, that you obviously challenge those in authority, and maybe the law will get changed. So the barriers, the basic barriers, are not there now. We're a far more inclusive society. We're far more inclusive in business. We're far more inclusive in politics. I mean, I was very proud that my party, the Lib Dems, have the greatest LGBTQ representation that they've ever had in obviously Parliament, and that to a certain extent is the same with the other parties as well. So a few people that were these sort of MPs sort of 25, 30 years ago who were the first people to stand up, because it's as recent as that, and said, look, I'm gay. People didn't. And, you know, it's a great sadness for me that when I was thinking about standing for Parliament and I was on the candidates list, I never said I was gay. When I was interviewed, I never said that I had a partner at home. And it's a huge sadness for me that I couldn't. But I'm a lot happier now that people don't have to live like that, because it's not good for your mental health. It's not good for your well-being. And, you know, we need to be far more open. So it's a long question. I veered in various different directions, but the major barriers are not there. You know, this isn't revolution, this is evolution. We will just continue, hopefully, to evolve and give better rights for our community.
Definitely. And we find that the young people that we're talking to tend to be the most action orientated, they've been aware that they're really sort of about making change and caring for others, and are really thinking about how do we develop society and make it better. So hopefully, you know, they're the generations that are going to push and make it even better for those that come after as well. So yeah, we are at the end of our time now. It's gone quickly, I know. Richard, before we say goodbye, do you have any final thoughts or things you would like to say as we wrap up today's session?
I think it was really for me to sort of re-emphasize, you know, life doesn't have to be difficult, because to a large extent, life is in your own hands. You've got an opportunity to make of it. I know it's not going to be easy for anybody starting their career, given the backdrop of the world as we see it. But the vast majority of people are good people. The vast majority of people want you to succeed. And it's not a silent majority. That is people you meet every day in your life. Don't mess it up. You only come this way actually once. You know, I always think of myself as a 65-year-old in a 20-year-old's body, because I feel like I've got another 40, 50 years to go. But that 65 years goes very obviously quickly. So make every day obviously count.
All right, 100%. Always put your all into everything. Definitely a great thing to think about towards the end of the day. So thank you for joining us today, Richard. Thank you for talking to us about Pride, about your career, about all the different things that you have done and pushed for. I think we've got some amazing sort of anecdotes and things to think about and bits of advice from today's session. So it's been really a pleasure having you on. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Charlie, and thanks everybody, and keep cool and have a good summer.
Certainly. All right, everyone. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. So thank you for tuning in. A feedback poll has gone live in the Q&A now. So if you scroll down, you should see it there. If you have a couple of minutes to share some feedback, I'm sure Richard would love to hear from you. And if not, a different feedback link will be shared with you shortly via email as well, so you can always answer there. All right, that's it for now. Hope you are feeling cool-ish in the sun and you all have an amazing afternoon. Bye for now.